stand up. Let's get you over here.
It's good to stand next to your husband.
That's right. We will call you up. Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's a beautiful day here in New York City, and it is particularly a joy to be here with Daniel Holtzman, the owner of this wonderful restaurant. And I just wanted to say that Charlene and I and Dr. Bassett tried most of the menu in our effort to know exactly all the great things available here at the Meatball Shop, and it's an extraordinary place. Talked to a lot of customers who really appreciate it and have stayed very loyal to this place because they love the food and they love the people who are part of it. And we wanted to be here today to thank this restaurant. They've been great partners in the last few days. And it's a real interesting example of how New Yorkers deal with a challenge. You'll hear the story from Daniel in a moment, but he's been here in this location 4 years, a huge following here in the neighborhood, a lot of devoted customers. He's got a lot of employees that he provides a great job to. And his customers over the last few days have been here to support him. They want to patronize this place even more. And that says something about New York City. There is a reality about New Yorkers. We're not only resilient, we're not only tough, but we stick by each other. And the people of this neighborhood and the customers of this restaurant have been here in greater numbers than ever to support the restaurant and to show that they know this city is safe and that things are being done in a way that makes them comfortable. So I want to thank all the New Yorkers who have stopped by. I want to encourage anyone who's hungry and around Greenwich Village tonight, come over to the Meatball Shop and you'll have some great food. And with that, I'd like you to hear from Daniel Holtzman.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you all for being here. The Meatball Shop, it has a very special place in my heart because it's my restaurant, but it's really the city of New York's restaurant and the restaurant for the people of the West Village and the other neighborhoods where we have locations. For me, yesterday was my proudest day as a New Yorker, to feel the support from both the mayor and the mayor's office, the Department of Health, and the Office of Emergency Management. They responded so quickly and they came to our aid and to make sure that our servers and our staff and our customers were safe. It really made me feel confident that everything that could possibly be done was being done, and it was being done as quickly as one could ever hope. So I really want to say thank you so much for the support. It means everything to me. And thank you so much to New York. And finally, that my prayers go out to anybody that has been affected by this. So God bless you.
I want you to tell them what happened after
Oh,
we reopened.
my goodness. I guess around 6 o'clock last evening, we opened up the doors, and I was a little nervous to see what would happen. But we had a line down the block, and we filled up immediately, and we were busy all night last night. And it made me, I just felt so proud to look out at the restaurant and think, shucks, these people are coming in to support and eat the meatballs, because meatballs are delicious. We love them. Thank you.
Yeah, would you spell your name first?
Daniel Holtzman, Holz as in zebra, M-A-N.
Excellent. And I think this is further evidence of the extraordinary efforts made by our city employees. I want to thank Dr. Bassett and everyone at the health department. I want to thank Commissioner Joe Esposito and everyone at the Office of Emergency Management. They had 3 businesses that they made sure to review and to clear. I know each and every one of those businesses appreciated that support, and the process has gone very, very smoothly. And this is the right segue into a reminder about some core truths about Ebola. And I want to again ask, at this moment, we are facing a challenge as a city, as a state, as a country. So I'm going to ask my colleagues in the media to please do all you can to get the facts out. because sometimes there are reports that don't suggest the truth about Ebola. It's really important to set the record straight. Ebola is a disease that can only be contracted with direct contact with the bodily fluids of someone who is infected. The bodily fluids, blood for example, but it cannot be contracted through casual contact. It is not an airborne disease. So it's very clear that it is a rare instance in which Ebola is transmitted. It requires, bluntly, intimate contact. And that is why it was so clear when our personnel came to the restaurant and confirmed the details that there had been no intimate contact, there had been nothing that would constitute a possibility of transmission of disease, and this restaurant and the other two organizations, I should say, were cleared. But we've got to keep making clear to people, this is not the common cold, this is not the flu, this is a disease that is actually fairly difficult to contract in very rare circumstances when there is direct contact with bodily fluids. So I think if we keep getting that message out, it's going to help people understand the difference between some other everyday common diseases and this very, very rare disease. Second, I want to remind people that if they do feel that they may have been exposed, there are two and only two things to do. Call 911 or proceed directly to an emergency room. I've said this a couple times, I'm going to keep saying it. Don't go to a family doctor. Don't wait and see how it goes. If you think you may be affected, which means you've been in one of the 3 countries in the last 21 days or have been in intimate contact with someone who has, and you have the symptoms, most notably fever, that's the time to call 911 or go to an emergency room. If you haven't been in the country, those 3 countries, if you haven't been in contact with anyone who's been in those 3 countries, if you don't have the symptoms, you are in no danger. And we just want to help give people a clear, factual message about what's going on here so that the public can be reassured. The facts are very, very powerful. Also want to give an update that the most recent suspected case, I should say, of a traveler who came into Newark Airport. We just received news that not only was the test that was done locally one that showed no presence of Ebola, but the CDC has done a test as well showing no presence of Ebola in that individual. There will be additional testing as a precaution over the next days, but we're happy to say that that traveler has shown no evidence of Ebola, and that's a good news story for everyone. With that, we'd like to welcome your questions. I'm going to ask Dr. Watch out for these recording devices, Dr. Bassett, and ask her to join me for the Q&A. Well,
you cannot contract it through casual contact on the buses and
right.
subways, which the governor alluded to.
Let's break. There's a couple different pieces here. On the question of prior consultation, no. On the question of how you contract this disease, I've just laid out very clearly. I think the governor alluded to the fact that this is a big and complicated city, and that if someone's here, they're traveling around, and that means that we have to do some extra special work to track down people's movements. But that is a very different idea than how you transmit the disease. Our medical detectives, I want to use the example of Dr. Spencer. Our medical detectives got to work right away, and I commend the health department because they have very well-trained people. This is, I want to say, as a matter of fact, known all over the world as the finest municipal health department anywhere on earth. They have trained for many, many complicated situations. This was the epicenter of the AIDS crisis 30 years ago. We've been through any number of other challenges. This is a health department that is battle tested. And so the medical detectives instantly went to work, and they found 4 people, and only 4 people, who were even a question in Dr. Spencer's case, In other words, the jury came back. We knew exactly who the 4 people were. There was no one else who even possibly could have been exposed. One of them immediately was disqualified because it was a car service driver who had no direct physical contact. There had been literally an internet payment, and there was no shaking of hands, no exchange of money. So there went 1, and we were down to 3. Those 3 are now in quarantine as a precaution. Let me finish because I think it's very important. The 3 individuals, the fiance and 2 friends of Dr. Spencer, are in quarantine as a precaution. None of them are showing any signs of illness, but they'll remain in quarantine as a precaution. Those are the facts. So the whole notion of the complexity of the city, we live that every day, people travel around, but that's a very different reality than whether in everyday travel or everyday transactions there be any possibility of transmission, and that case would be exceedingly rare.
How do you
Whoa. Guys, one at a time, we're still on the first question.
So do you agree or disagree with that, the 21-day quarantine that they enacted yesterday?
So let me clarify what it is and what it isn't. Because I've had extensive conversations with the governor since the announcement. And I think a couple things need to be noted. This is an evolving situation. Government agencies will update their standards as we go along. The CDC has certainly done that several times. That's normal. The governor made clear in the pronouncement, and certainly in the conversations we've had since, that there is inherent flexibility built into the approach. The 2 health commissioners, Dr. Bassett and Dr. Zucker, will be in constant communication on any of the specifics. But let's be clear. What has been said is a medical professional who had direct contact with Ebola patients, or an individual who had direct contact with Ebola patients. That is the narrow definition that was put forward vis-a-vis the potential quarantine. That still has to be determined by medical personnel if those qualifications are met. So it really will come down to, and I want to emphasize, there's a lot of things that we as laymen should not assume the medical professionals, the 2 health commissioners, will determine how that works in practice in New York State and New York City.
Can we get a yes or a no to that
I
question?
want to ask, as far as Dr. Spencer is concerned, considering that you've gone to a few of the places that he went to while he found out that he was infected, shouldn't he get some of the responsibility? And some people are wondering if he actually wasn't responsible about this, considering he wasn't involved.
I think that's a really inappropriate characterization. Here is a doctor who volunteered to go into what is the medical equivalent of a war zone. This is no different than a soldier who goes into battle to protect us. Dr. Spencer went to the front line, putting his own life potentially in danger to save others, not only to save others in the nation in which he was serving, but to protect the entire world and to protect his native country. So that needs to be fully respected. He also constantly monitored his own condition, and at the moment when he had an indication of fever, remembering it was 100.3, hardly a high fever compared to the norm of 98.6, but the minute he even got to 100.3 between 10 and 11 a.m. on Thursday, he immediately activated communication, and he was brought into Bellevue right away. So I think he's comported himself in an incredibly professional and appropriate manner. Dr. Bassett. Could you say that again for Dr. Bassett?
The question is about the management of Dr. Spencer, and the answer to that question is yes, he has been treated with antiviral drugs. He also will be, yes, and he will also be receiving plasma. He, of course, core to the management of people with Ebola virus disease is the management of their body fluids and the supportive management, we often describe it as, but he is also being supported by an incredible team. We've received people from the CDC, including people who've been directly involved with the care of other people with Ebola virus disease being treated here in the United States. So there has also been contact with the group in Emory, the group in Nebraska. So we have really been fortunate to draw down on the knowledge base that exists across the country and direct it towards his care.
Do you support the idea of
hold on, guys. This is serious subject matter. You're going to have to let us finish each answer. We will call upon a number of you. Let me speak to this. We need to be clear that a number of people who have had Ebola in the United States, and obviously the recent situation in Spain as well, went through very advanced treatment, and thank God came out okay. Nurse Pham is the most recent example of that, and we just heard very good news about Nurse Vinson as well. That suggests a clear pattern of the success of the medical techniques being used in this country to address this crisis. Now, that being said, we have a patient at Bellevue. We're going to respect his privacy in every way we can. We have an obligation to you all to give you as much as we can. We also have an obligation to him to respect his privacy rights. We do need to clarify, because we've seen other patients go through this trajectory, that it's a tough road ahead by definition. It's a tough disease. It's been overcome. You'll remember the first two American doctors who were flown back, went through very rigorous treatment, had a tough experience, but you've all seen them interviewed on TV since and explain all the details of what they went through. The phase ahead will be a tough one. By definition, the next few days will be tough for Dr. Spencer. So this is a hackneyed phrase, but in this case it is absolutely the truth medically. It will be worse before it gets better. His situation will be worse before it gets better. But he has literally the finest care in the world right now at Bellevue. Please.
Do you support the idea of mandatory quarantine for healthcare workers returning from West Africa?
Ken, we have a situation here where we have accepted guidance from the federal government, which is the right thing to do, the Centers for Disease Control, and where our state government also has to make determinations. We respect them both. We have been working with both of them. We then, within our rights and purviews as a city, make our own decisions and take our own actions. But we've got to be clear, in an atmosphere of crisis, we respect the chain of command here. We respect what the federal government is saying, we respect what the state government is saying, and we're all going to work together within those parameters. But be very clear about the new parameter. It is narrowly defined, related to individuals who have come in direct contact with an Ebola victim, and there is additional specificity in terms of allowing the two health commissioners to determine, in the case of New York State, to determine next steps.
Some people in the aid community say this will discourage volunteers from going at a time when more volunteers are needed in West Africa.
Well, let's speak to the larger situation. I think it's a fair concern. We have to be deeply concerned as a nation that we make sure there are sufficient medical personnel in those three countries to help solve the crisis. Let's be clear, and I think this is something that all Americans should reflect upon. This country has played a leading role over the last century in resolving global conflicts and challenges. We have gone into wars to protect freedom of others. We have gone into nations to stop genocide. We are going into, and the President's made this clear, we are going to send the United States military to these three countries to help resolve the crisis. We also need medical personnel, expert medical personnel from the United States and other countries to go and help stop this disease dead in its tracks. That has to be a paramount concern. And every city and state should help in any way it can in that effort, because that is how we protect the homeland. Kill the disease dead in its tracks in those three countries. So we're going to do all we can to encourage that reality. I think it's a bigger point, in other words. The question of the quarantine is a fair one, but I think the more important question is, what can we do to support and encourage the maximum number of medical personnel to volunteer for that mission, because that's the only way we ultimately end this crisis.
Fair, thank you. For Dr. Bassett, you're obviously a preeminent expert in public health. If you were to put yourself in Dr. Spencer's shoes, and you had spent some amount of time treating Ebola patients, hands-on, in West Africa, and you came home to New York, what would you do? Would you be out and about? Would you go bowling when you felt fatigued? What would you personally do as a doctor?
Thanks for that question, and I have to tell you personally, I have thought of how important it is for medical doctors from this country to go to Liberia, even for myself, although my job is here in New York. Dr. Spencer followed all of the advice on active monitoring that his organization requested. He was not sick when he left Guinea, not sick when he got on a plane to come to the United States. And as you have heard from us repeatedly, the first time that he had an elevated temperature, something associated with potential infectiousness was on Thursday morning. He had a temperature of 100.3, and he immediately sounded the alarm. So I will repeat again that I think that he followed a responsible protocol. We are confident that we have identified all of the people who were in direct physical contact with him. These are 3 individuals who remain well, but they are in quarantine. They will remain in quarantine for 21 days.
But of course,
Let
just
me
a follow.
let me follow. I'm sorry. Let me pick this
Sure.
up, and then you'll get your follow. Hold on. The Doctors Without Borders, also known as MSF for its French acronym, Doctors Without Borders has been leading the international response. They are not a government. They are a non-profit organization that has done an immense amount to protect the people of the United States of America and the entire world by going to the front line in large numbers to address this crisis. They have clear guidance. I think there's been some misunderstanding out there about this. They have clear guidance. Someone comes back, obviously at that moment not ill, they self-monitor, and in the event of any fever or that type of indication, they report it immediately. Dr. Spencer did everything exactly according to what his organization required.
I wasn't suggesting, anything other than my question for you, doctor, is it's more than the potential for infection of other people. That's obviously very important. But there's also all of this. He goes to the Meatball Shop, and then he gets sick, and now there's a crisis at the Meatball Shop. And then he goes bowling, and it becomes sort of a public
It's not a crisis here. We've got no. I think there's a concern, and that's why we're here.
That's my question. It becomes a public concern that all of these locations now are, there's an image issue with all of these locations. And so I guess I'll ask again: if you had come back from West Africa, would you think it prudent?
This is really a hypothetical question that I'm not sure that I'm in the position to answer. But I will reiterate again that the trigger to concern about contagion to others is the emergence of fever. And at the moment when he had even a very low-grade fever, when I was an intern, we used 100.4 as the cut point for considering it actually a fever. His temperature was 100.3, and he notified his employers, who notified us at the health department, and he has had no further contact. We then unleash our job as being medical detectives and find every single place where he's been, and we try and identify every single person with whom he's been in contact. We have done that. We've identified the 3 individuals with whom he had contact. They are in quarantine. We have visited all of the places that he visited, which we told you about on the very first day that he was diagnosed. This one is one. We came here to verify the story. Was what he said happened here what actually happened? And the answer was yes. There was no possibility of body fluids contact here at this restaurant. That's why it's open for business. That's why we're sitting here eating a fabulous lunch today, and why people were lined up last night.
I'm coming to you, but let me add on. We face a host of challenges every day in our society. What you're asking is a very important question, but it really does get to the difference between reality and perception, okay? We've had a lot of people come back who have had no problem whatsoever. Brave people who went to the front line to fight on behalf of all of us have come back with no problem whatsoever, and we honor them for that. When we've had a situation like this, our job is to make sure that all the facts are out and the situation is clarified. By the way, we deal with issues like this every single day. This one may have a certain deep concern it generates because it's new, because people don't understand it yet. That's natural. But we deal every single day with things that might be a concern for the health and safety of New Yorkers or anybody else in this country. Our job is to set clear standards and to be very informative. And we're saying in this case, every action was followed up. Each institution was cleared. The situation is normal. Look at the 3 people he was in close contact with, all of whom are well today. So again, you all have an important job to do. But I only ask of you to present the whole picture so people can be reassured, not by someone's way of talking about it, but by actual facts.
Is
Yep.
Dr. Spencer's fiancé about to be released from hospital?
Dr. Spencer's fiance is in quarantine and is well. We're discussing with her now next steps. She will remain in a quarantine, but how we will arrange it is still being determined.
Will she go back to the apartment that they shared?
Again, we're still talking through with her specifics, but she will remain in quarantine.
She's still stable.
All right, let's
The
just get this one
patient-
first.
When did he get those?
The drugs he was taking. So you can answer these two. When did he get the drugs, and is he still stable?
I believe that he received the antiviral drugs on the second day of his hospitalization, and the plan for administering plasma is in place. Whether he's received it or not, I can't say. I want to say again what the mayor has said already very clearly, that this is a disease where we expect that people may deteriorate. He came in very early because he came in as soon as he noted a temperature, and people tend to get worse before they get better with this disease. So he remains in stable condition, but we are aware that this is the natural course of this disease, so I want all of us to be aware of that as we follow him going forward.
Wait, people haven't asked yet. Go ahead.
Question for the mayor. I mean, how do you feel about the fact that the governor of the state of New York did not consult with you before making this very serious?
Again, this is not about feelings. This is not about personality. This is a crisis in which we all have to hang together to protect our people. I respect the governor greatly. Let's be clear what we said at Bellevue on Thursday night. There has been non-stop coordination and communication between the state of New York and the city of New York. The two health commissioners have been talking multiple times a day for weeks. I've been speaking to the governor constantly. We have been prepping and training our personnel together. What we need to keep doing is keep that close coordination going. We understand in a fast-moving situation, sometimes there will be moments where the communication is not everything we want it to be. But we also know in these dynamics what ultimately wins the day, what keeps our people safe, and what works is close working cooperation between city and state. That's why you saw the situation unfold on Thursday as clearly and smoothly as it did. A protocol was in place, the training had been done, everyone knew what their job was, everyone did their job. That was based on weeks of coordination, and that will continue.
A few more, please.
Yesterday, how the city has stepped up its monitoring of the travel West Africa.
I'll start and pass it to Mary. This is something we're starting today. CDC issued a new guideline which we wholly support, which is to monitor anyone who has returned in the sense of the health department having direct contact with them on a daily basis to check and see if there is any change in their health that might be pertinent. By the way, if they stub their toe or break their elbow, that is not pertinent, but if they have a fever or something that might indicate this disease, that would be pertinent. So the health department will every day be in direct contact with anyone who we have the name of who has returned from the 3 affected countries in the last 21 days. That list has been provided to us by the Centers for Disease Control. The monitoring will begin today. We are going to, today and in the next few days, have the names of everyone who has entered in the last 21 days. So it is not just people who arrived today and going forward. It will be everyone who has arrived from the 3 affected countries in the 21-day prior window, and then we'll maintain that 21-day sequence thereafter.
Correct that a little bit,
You may,
if you don't
please.
mind, Mr. Mayor.
Your job is to...
As you all know, on October 11th, the Centers for Disease Control instituted a new program of checking people who arrived from travel that included the 3 countries, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and Guinea. And on entry at JFK and in 4 other big airports around the country that together comprise 90% of returning travelers from these countries, they asked them some questions and checked their temperatures. So that was on October 11th. We now are able to identify the people who returned, actually going back 2 weeks. I wish we could go back 21 days, but we are actually going to be going back 2 weeks.
That's the first day
That's the first day that we have the information. Because before then, there was no ready way to identify people who had returned from these countries. That capacity began when the CDC initiated its fever checks and short questionnaire on entry, on return to the United States at 5 major airports. We will actively reach out to these individuals, contacting them with information that's been provided by the Centers for Disease Control.
Wait, finish. Hold on. Follow on there.
How does the governor's quarantine order affect the Department of Health's monitoring process? Have you thought about, is there a site being identified if you do need to quarantine?
Well, let's separate the 2 points first, and then you'll come on.
Sure.
First, the monitoring is done by direct contact, ideally telephone, but it can be a visit, by our health department, connecting with the list of people we've given. And Dr. Bassett's exactly right. I'm trying to emphasize we will respect the 21-day time frame and be in touch with someone from day 1 till day 21, but she's actually absolutely right. The names only go back 2 weeks, so that's really our true starting point. That monitoring will happen with anyone who's returned. That is a separate concept from anything that might be undertaken with quarantine. But again, the details of quarantine will be worked out between the state health department and the city health department. We will have available spaces if needed. We've identified housing if needed that can provide quarantine capacity.
I have a question for Dr. Bassett, if I may. Dr. Spencer is obviously an expert in treating Ebola patients. Is he, because of this, able to assist in his own treatment and diagnosis?
I'm unable to answer that question. I'm not actually directly involved in his care. He's being cared for by a very able team at Bellevue Hospital, backed up by advice and consultation with experts across the country, and the CDC team that arrived recently that also has expertise. So I can imagine, in all good patient-physician relationships, the patient, Dr. Spencer in this case, should have the opportunity to participate in and make decisions about their care, but I can't speculate on what's actually happened. That's part of the confidential doctor-patient relationship.
Time for a couple more, please.
A couple more, and I just want to say one thing at the end. Go ahead.
Quick, I'm wondering, Dr. Bassett, can you personally tell us what you believe about the 21-day mandatory announcement that the governor made yesterday, and also his characterization implying that Dr. Spencer was irresponsible and didn't obey the rules?
I'm going to have the doctor come up, but I just want to say respectfully, guys, you've asked the same question in 6 different ways.
I don't think you've given a straight
Well, we've given a very clear answer. That's an editorial comment. The clear answer is the state has a right to make its decisions just like the CDC does, and we're going to work with them. This is not about personalities. It's not about personal opinions. This is a crisis in which everyone works together. So I don't think it's about what we think personally. It's about what is going to keep our people safe.
Just given that collaboration and given what we saw on Thursday, do you think that there should have been some sort of heads up yesterday from the administration?
It's the same question. I think the
seems
broad.
Like a different question. Should there have been a heads up?
I said why we are doing as well as we have done is the close working relationship between the city, state, and I would add the federal agencies as well. Everyone has been in constant contact, prepping together, drilling together, communicating constantly. That works. That's what we need to do. Do we expect that to work perfectly at all times? No, we are talking about human beings in the middle of a crisis, in a fast-moving situation. But we are going to do everything we know how to do to keep that close collaboration and to make sure that everyone is on the same page.
Let's go, guys.
The 3 individuals who were in contact with Dr. Spencer,
yes,
they have not yet been cleared of having COVID.
No, they are in quarantine. They are well, and they will be in quarantine for a while. So,
November 14th.
November 14th is when they'll come out, right?
I thought you said she might,
She will remain in quarantine. She may move location, but she will remain in quarantine. So let's do it again. Again, I'm going to ask everyone to help us get facts out. 3 individuals, the fiance of Dr. Spencer and 2 good friends, are the only people he came in close contact with. All 3 in quarantine. All 3 are well. They will remain in quarantine until?
November 14th.
November 14th. In the case of the fiance, the location going forward may change, but it will still be a quarantine situation. That is being determined. Last one before I make a final statement.
I have a medical question for you, Doctor. The 2 close contacts, could you clarify, they were bowling with the patient at the bowling alley? Is that why they are considered close contacts? And we'll have a follow-up after you answer that.
Well, close contact really refers to direct physical contact. That's why in the case of the car driver, we know that he just looked at a cell phone to confirm that the payment had been made. In the case of the two friends, they spent substantial amounts of time with him and had direct physical contact with Dr. Spencer. That's the basis.
For example,
of
they
this.
hugged him.
They hugged, they shook hands, they shared food.
Well, I guess, so sharing food, saliva, potentially.
No, that's not it. They were just spending time together and
Well, my
having
question, I guess,
touching.
And it's an abundance of caution.
Abundance of caution.
Abundance of caution in the bowling alley. The next person's used bowling.
Oh.
How do you figure that stuff out? People have actually asked me.
So, okay, so people, this is a scary disease. So we understand that people need to ask these questions, and we need to keep answering them, and we depend on you and the media to keep getting the answers out. Dr. Spencer was, I don't bowl, but Dr. Spencer had not had a fever at the time that he was at the bowling alley. His first fever occurred on Thursday, the day in which he notified his employers, the Doctors Without Borders, notified the health department, and went into isolation and began getting care for himself. So we were not concerned about the description that he made of what happened. Our visit to the bowling alley was just to verify, as part of our medical detective work, that the story that he told us matched the experience of the people there.
And let's clarify, because it's a good question, and we want to get back to what we said Thursday. The only instances of transmission that we know of involve when someone reaches the point of fever. He was not at a point. In fact, strikingly, even though he reported some fatigue, he went for a 3-mile run, he went walking, he went bowling. This is someone who clearly was able to do a lot of things that actually everyday healthy New Yorkers might have trouble doing, like a 3-mile run. Only when he actually had a fever, and quite a minor fever of 100.3, did he report that he now believed he should come in. And I think that's our point here. Nothing in the revisits to the 3 sites, the bowling alley, the restaurant, and the coffee shop, nothing out of the ordinary was reported. Nothing that suggested anything that could have been constituted as direct, intimate contact to begin with bodily fluids. But second, he was not at the point in the trajectory where we have any evidence of anyone being infectious to begin with. Final statement, we've covered a lot. Let me just get this out, final statement. Both a point about New York and a point about what people can do, because people always ask this question, and again, would appreciate your help getting it out. You've noticed that since the first reports came in publicly on Thursday afternoon, New Yorkers have done something very normal and something at the same time extraordinary. They have gone about their everyday lives. People are all over the city doing what they normally do, riding the subways, going to work, going to restaurants. Nothing has changed. This is a city that does not fall into the pattern of looking at fears, but continues with their lives. And that is part of what makes this place so strong and so resilient. So I just want to express my admiration and appreciation to my fellow New Yorkers for focusing on the facts and not some of the exaggerated fears. And here is the biggest city in the United States of America, one of the most prominent cities in the world, and literally to a person, every report we've seen, everyone is going about their business as normal, and that is a credit to all New Yorkers. In the category of what you can do, people have asked this over and over. And at this point, there's 2 things that are truly helpful. One, again, is the exceptional dynamic. If you have been to one of the 3 countries, have been in intimate contact with someone who's been in one of the 3 countries in the last 21 days specifically, and you have a fever or any other indication of those kind of symptoms, call 911. Out of an abundance of caution, at least call 911 or go to an emergency room. Those are the only 2 things someone should do if they've been in one of the countries, had direct and intimate contact with someone who's been in one of those countries in the last 21 days only, and they have symptoms like a serious fever. That's what anyone in that situation should do. What everyday New Yorkers can do, I've said it sounds a little counterintuitive, but it's actually quite important, is to help the medical professionals who are working so intensely to protect us all. Help them avoid the misleading dynamic of people having the everyday flu and thinking it may be something much worse. The best way to combat the everyday flu is to get the flu shot. So literally every New Yorker who has not gotten a flu shot and goes and gets one right now, which you can do at your doctor's office or you could do at a pharmacy, everyone who gets a flu shot helps our medical professionals by taking those potentially false indicators off the table and helping us focus on only the very, very few people who actually might be in any other type of danger. It's incredibly helpful, and I think the entire medical community of this city would deeply appreciate it. People literally take that as an instruction. If you haven't done it, go do it today. It will help us as we deal with a much bigger challenge if we can take care of that smaller challenge. And by the way, getting a flu shot is a smart thing to do in and of itself. With that, I say thanks, everyone.